Welcome to the Onco PT podcast, where you'll learn from oncology experts, practitioners, and patients to help you on your journey to become a confident and competent Onco PT. Here's your host, Elise Cantu.
Hey Onco PT, and welcome back to this episode of the Onco PT podcast. Now, if you've been paying attention to the calendar, you know that the first deadline for your oncology case report is just around the corner. And if you've been feeling a little stressed out or a little overwhelmed with the process, I have an amazing guest for you today who is going to take us behind the scenes on her own experience writing her case report and ultimately getting it accepted as part of her ABPTS Oncology Specialty Certification application. And so I'm so thrilled to welcome Theresa Walchner to the podcast. Theresa, welcome to the Onco PT podcast.
Hi, Elise. Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. Absolutely. Would you mind telling my audience a little bit about you, Theresa?
All right. I have been a physical therapist for 22 years. I've actually worked at the same clinic my entire career.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Seen a lot of changes in 22 years. I went for lymphedema certification way back in 2005. So even just those changes have been crazy too over the years.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, I decided to start this process, going for the board certification in oncology. So I have kind of a personal interest. I'm a thyroid cancer survivor.
Wow.
So many people in my family have had cancer, but the closest one to me is my brother, who actually passed away in 2002 from colon cancer. And I was in school. And, you know, I wasn't fully an adult and didn't know how to help him, so
yeah,
he's kind of shaped my professional career because he wanted me to keep going. So that's kind of inspired me the whole time. So
that is so lovely. Did you know, because you mentioned you've been at the same clinic for your entire career.
Yeah.
Did you know when you finished school that you wanted to work in oncology?
Absolutely not. I had no clue. So where I'm at is an orthopedic outpatient clinic and sports medicine. So I was doing general orthopedic and sports medicine. I was not an athlete in doing sports medicine. But I had seen lymphedema on one of my clinicals and, mentioned it in my interview, and they're like, oh, we don't have it here. And within 2 years, because we had a cancer center, they're like, yeah, we want the program here. So I started my training then. And just kind of built on that. I saw the need for oncology rehab. Again, that wasn't really a subject in my schooling. We learned about it in an hour, So I just kind of was self-taught until I found some continuing education courses over the years and kind of built off of that.
Holy cow. So now, these days, 2025, you've been at the same institution for 2+ decades now. You've seen cancer rehab go from basically non-existent at that location to now. Obviously, you see quite a few oncology patients. Yeah. What does your practice look like these days? What kind of patients are you working with?
Runs the gamut on the cancer side, where I have some surgeons on board doing prehab and prospective surveillance. So, I don't get as many working in the gym with neuropathy patients and cancer-related fatigue, but I'm slowly building that program. Probably in the last 3 years, we've developed specialty interest groups. So I had the lymphedema oncology one, which is how I found you. I was looking for podcasts and just everything kind of fell into place that your information was great for just discussions with the group. So I'm the only lymphedema therapist at my clinic right now, but in my health system, I've got like maybe 5 or 6 others.
So Theresa, you mentioned that, there's now 5 lymphedema therapists or so in your health system. How many oncology therapists are in your, generally speaking, in your health system?
Yeah, so I'm the main one.
Nice.
And I have no idea how many PTs, OTs, speech therapists we have across the system. It's, it's fairly large. We only have 2 major health systems in Dayton. Ohio, but I'm a rare bird, I guess. But yeah, like I have my coworkers, my friends that I can go to, like there's that vestibular expert, there's that pelvic floor expert, and they don't mind kind of delving into the oncology world with me. But yeah, I'm kind of the local expert.
Yee. So 2 years ago, it seems like, is when you kind of started this journey. What sparked your interest in, hey, there's this specialization. I think I want to check it out. I think I'm interested in pursuing that.
Yeah. So I had learned about the possibility of specialization many years ago when it was just like they were just exploring the possibilities. And so I just kind of kept an eye out, like maybe that would be something to do. I don't know. And then, when it came out, I was like, ooh, I don't know right now. I don't know. Probably some imposter syndrome, kicking in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my hospital had just been going through a big transition. Like the one hospital we were affiliated had closed. And so now, name change, just a lot of transition at work that I just wasn't sure about. And then when COVID hit and having a partial shutdown, then kind of recovering from that. So my clinic was only open like 2 days a week. And then I had to work as a door screener, checking people for their temperatures and where did you go and all that stuff. So kind of recovering from that and kind of building up my caseload again. That was actually when I got to be lymphedema full time. Okay. So then I'm like, I need more help. And so I looked for more continuing education, and I actually went through the PORI coursework. And that really gave me a lot of confidence. I had taken courses from Julia Osborne, like way back in 2007, 2008, when she was delving in there, and just what she's developed has been really cool. But that's what gave me the confidence to be like, maybe I should look into this a little bit more. So it all kind of came together all at once, where that specialty group I'm leading, I'm like, I need to figure out some kind of topic for us. And I found one of your podcasts on, I think it was one with your sister, maybe, on chemo.
Like OG,
right? Something on like the different chemotherapy side effects and whatnot. Cause I was like, okay, everybody needs like this basic overview, right? And you had an advertisement for the case writing report workshop, and I was like, huh. And then I get the email and I'm like, huh. Yeah, the email says the deadline's coming up. Like maybe we should look at this application process. And then I look at it and I'm like, case report. Okay. I haven't done one of these in a long time. Yeah. So that was really intimidating because I am not in an academic institution. I just don't know where to even start with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So Elise's voice was in my head. Join my workshop, and kind of went from there.
This is a really common experience that I hear about, which is I've heard of specialization. I may be interested in it. And then, maybe like, oh, okay, the deadline's coming up. I need to get my application in. And then that case report, it's not like they try to hide it, but it's almost like it's a little hidden.
Yeah.
Maybe from like my mind, I didn't put much thought or weight into like, a case report until I opened up the requirements and thought, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, a case report. And the same thing, like we wrote, kind of a case report sort of in PT school. And then like, I've never written one of those big ones before. And, like you had mentioned, you had been several years removed from school, and this wasn't something that you were really doing in your practice. So once you figured out, okay, I'm going to do this. Oh, the deadline's coming up. Oh, there's a case report. How did you feel about writing a case report like this? I
had no idea where to start. I had no idea what would be a good patient case to utilize. I think I ultimately started with like, okay, I've got 3 people in mind, like that were fresh in my head. I had just worked with them. That was something that I had no clue where to go. And then, the more in depth I'm starting to read, like the example one, I'm like, what? I just, I was flabbergasted. Like, I don't even remember doing this much detail when I had written a case report in PT school and grad school. So yeah, I was so grateful for your workshop. To just the way you laid everything out was just like, oh, thank you.
What part of case report writing workshop did you find was most helpful? Because you came in with 3 patients. You were like, I feel good about these options. What do you think was most helpful in helping you actually get that case report out of your brain and onto paper?
I think going through your modules where you had just like these brainstorming, just write everything down. Just write what's in your head, and what's important about that particular person. That made it a little bit easier to focus in on, okay, that's probably the better case to focus on. And what was interesting during my writing process, I picked a breast cancer patient that I treated for axillary web syndrome, and the different techniques I had used. And then as I examined the case, I'm like, dang, I missed some stuff that, I didn't take into account her fatigue, and not just her fatigue from cancer treatments, but other medical history, and like how that was affecting her going back to work. And then if she was fatigued at work, what was that doing to her posture and her body mechanics, and how did that then affect the axillary web syndrome? So it was just like, oh
yeah,
okay, so maybe this is a good one, because I remember you saying something about it's your clinical expertise, but also what could you learn and how could you grow from these patients. And that's kind of how I keyed in on that particular case.
That's such a good reflection too on, and again, I think when we start writing our case report, we want to pick out the perfect patient who's like the best demonstration of how great of onco-PTs we are, which like that's legitimate. That's a reasonable thing. But also there's a human on the other side,
right,
of that, of this case, that patient that we're talking about who has their own human experiences. And, like sometimes things don't work out. I've shared this before. My patient had a DVT and then another pathological fracture during our plan of care. There were things that I missed. And so and this is not to, of course, Theresa be like, you missed this stuff. How did writing your case report and reflecting on this, how has this changed your patient care? Like if you were to encounter this patient again?
Yeah, I do try to look more holistically at the patient. Like today I had somebody who just came from her surgery but hasn't started chemo or radiation, and then wanted me to do lymphedema education. And just taking into account, like, okay, this is the chemo you're going to have. That is what they're recommending. This is the radiation you're going to have. This affects so many different aspects. Just looking at that whole person, what is their medical history a little bit more in depth, versus like, oh yeah, you got high blood pressure. Well, is that well controlled? Let's take your blood pressure today. Is that your normal blood pressure? No. Okay. Maybe a little white coat syndrome. Things like that I would just brush off in the past. Things that where I'm not just focused on one small problem. Like we have to look at everything today. And I know other therapists that I work with, they may not necessarily look at all of that. They're just looking at, well, you're here for lymphedema, so let's measure the size of your arm, for example. So I think that's just kind of helped me reflect on, like, what are you doing that needs to be improved overall to give that best patient care.
So as you were going through writing your case report, again, like case report writing workshop, it takes you through those brainstorming exercises that we've talked about before, those specific writing prompts. Was there a turning point as you're taking the workshop from, I'm working on my case report, to, oh my gosh, I have a case report. Like I'm writing a case report.
Yeah, I think once I focused in on that one case, I wasn't going to pick these things out for each 3 cases that I had looked at. And I was like, yeah, that one makes the most sense to do. So I think it was just all the prompts you had along the way through the modules that just made me zero in on that. That's the one that I should probably focus on.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Very cool. How did the workshop help you stay accountable to actually not just starting the case report, but following through? And you eventually finished it. And a spoiler alert, she did submit it, obviously. Yeah. So like what, like how was that process for you in staying accountable, staying on track for your deadline that you were working towards?
Yeah, I think I started probably like in May of that year. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to dedicate like Friday afternoons off when I'm off work, or, Saturdays. Nice. Like, so I didn't work on it through the week. Just trying to focus on Friday is writing day. And so I spaced it out that way, but I also didn't give myself the pressure. I only have 2 weeks to get this done. I am a procrastinator, but I wasn't that bad with this. I was proud of myself on that. So yeah, I think just having like, okay, I got through this module. Let's try to attack the second module next week or whatever. That then I was able to like, okay, I want to have the workshop done by like July. So I gave myself like 2 months, and then I gave myself like a month to actually write everything formally. And I followed your advice of getting other people to read through it. So, they helped me like, maybe just change the wording here a little bit. And then my ultimate goal was like, okay, like that first week in September, that's when I want to submit this. And it was submitted and accepted without any corrections needed on the first try. And you were like one of the first people I messaged on Instagram. I was like, thank you.
So, my God, amazing.
Yeah. And then you're like, go celebrate. And I'm like, no, I got to study now. So
you have time. You had a little time.
Yeah. So, I tried not to think too far ahead on that study part, but I just kind of sat down with it, like looking at how you had the modules broken down and decided this is kind of my time frame of this is how it's going to work for me. Because being an older therapist, I get tired, and I'm not going to want to do this stuff after work when I've just worked 9 hours. Thyroid cancer fatigue, So that just was the best way I figured out for myself of how to do this. Other people may be able to do that, in 2 weeks or whatever, or a weekend before. I don't know. That's just not how I roll.
Right. Well, and knowing yourself too, and like, how am I going to operate best to ultimately get this done? Yeah. That's what matters at the end of the day. And I want to pull something out that you said that I think is so important, that it kind of gets pushed to the end, or worst of all, I think it's skipped altogether because people run out of time, which is having other people review your case report. So you don't have to tell me like specific names, Theresa, but who did you have review your case report? Generally speaking, how was that helpful for improving the overall submission quality of your case report?
So I had 2 of my close friend coworkers read through it, and they had both been therapists. Let's see, one was probably like 8 years out, and the other one was about 10 or 13 years, somewhere in there. And she's like my work bestie. So she was very, very helpful. Got her red pen out for me.
Nice.
And, she's got family at home, and the fact that she took the time to help me out with that was great. And, the other therapist, he's my actual site supervisor. So the fact that he took the time to do that as well was really awesome. They were all confused about the way that I had it with the, how you have to do your abbreviations, like you said, to break down each section and repeat those abbreviations. They're like, why are you doing this? But everything else, they had really good good feedback of ways to change it. So I think it was helpful to have somebody experienced, but not too far out from school. And, you know, they also helped me treat some of the oncology patients, so they kind of knew what things were about too.
Nice.
So I wasn't throwing completely new information at them.
Right. Right. I think that's a really good balance too of, you know, they have some experience, some exposure to oncology, but maybe different also than you and your expertise.
Yeah.
And I think that helps in general from what I've seen. It kind of gets us, it pulls us out of our, you know, as we're working on our case reports, we are so close. We're like so focused on the material. Sometimes we miss stuff. And my reviewers did a great job of like, what are you talking about here? I have no clue how you got from here to here. So like big fan of that. Big component of case report writing that we really have to consider is the actual reviewing process. When it came time for you to actually submit and you submit it and you hear back and it's been accepted on the first try, how did you feel once you got that news?
I think I was in shock. Especially the fact that I didn't have to make any corrections. I'm like, what? Come on, I had to mess up something. Because I think the day that I uploaded it, I found like one little error in my reference list. And I'm like, oh no, how many more errors are there? You know, so I think it was just like total shock. And my husband works from home, and I was like banging on his office door, like, oh my God. So then it was just like freaking out, you know, and telling everybody possible. But yeah, it was total shock, just because it had been such a long process. I mean, the whole thing of applying and then studying and then how long it takes to find out your results and all that stuff. It's like, oh my God, I just lost a year of my life. You know, so yeah, total shock that day. And I don't think it took that long to find out either. I thought it might take.
That's really cool.
I thought it might take a month or something to hear, and I want to say it was less than a week. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And that was partly why I also wanted to apply, get everything in by early September, knowing it was due at the end of September in case I needed to do any revisions, that I would have time to do that. So thank goodness I didn't. Then I got to goof off the rest of September.
Right. You got basically like a free month back before you had to really get back into it. And that's the thing too is, you know, and I'm always curious when I ask people, you know, when did you submit? When did you hear back? Because it really is like a rolling admission. And when I say that, don't misinterpret that, dear listener. It's they read them in the order that they get them. And so at the end of September, I imagine, which is that when we've had that final deadline, like me, I did this. A lot of people are submitting. And so it took like probably, I think maybe 6 weeks or so before I heard back on my case report. And I've had other students who have been like closer to 2 months out. So I'm always interested, like, when did you get yours back? When did you hear? When did you submit? How do you feel now about case report writing compared to when you were first starting that application way back when? Case report writing workshop.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I have that sense of accomplishment that I did it. Do I want to do it again? No.
Valid.
I mean, if you twist my arm, okay. But I'd have to go back through your workshop again as a refresher.
But it's there for that reason.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was definitely a huge sense of accomplishment that hey, I can do this stuff. I don't have to do like a formal research paper or whatever. I can contribute in some way. That does make me feel like, okay, imposter syndrome out the door, you know?
Yeah. How do you think that influenced, because you got this great news of my case report was accepted, no corrections needed. How did that kind of then flow into once you started studying for the exam then?
Yeah. So then I was like, I need a plan. Like, where do I go from here? You know, because I had a lot of knowledge built up from all of my experience plus CEUs all over the place. so I just started searching for different coursework. So I found a lot of like online CEUs that I could try to just build up my knowledge. I'm close to Ohio State University, so they offer some courses, and Chris Wilson was one of the speakers, and they started talking about that oncology rehabilitation textbook, and they had a couple of contributors at that conference. I was like, maybe I should get this book. So that was kind of like my main study guide, along with going back through some other course material. I worked with our friend Alex Hill, took one of her courses. Thank you, Alex. Her pelvic floor class for the oncology rehabilitation specialist is very helpful.
That's a gem.
Because like you, I am not a pelvic floor person. I know just a little, and that's good. So, I found, Katie Schmidt, who you've also had on. She has that online course on the APTA oncology site on her neuropathy treatment. So that was like a great review of neuropathy side effect causes and all that stuff. So I just kind of pulled together quite a few things, the EDGE task force work and all of their papers on, radiation fibrosis and neuropathy and fatigue and all those things. So yeah, I had so much stuff floating in my head, but that was kind of my guideline of, this is how I want to study. So let me get in a course here, and let me review this article here. Let me check that chapter out, and just kind of studied probably from October to my test date in March.
And then you eventually took your exam. You eventually heard back on the results. So we're sitting on pins and needles here, Theresa. What happened? What happened?
I passed. Yeah. Yeah. That day that they sent out the email that your results are being uploaded, oh my God, the website was crashing, and it was like, it was just like such a roller coaster. Like something came up, some error message, like that you don't have authorization. I'm like, oh God, did I fail? What happened?
Oh my God.
And a friend of mine had taken the geriatric specialty, and she's like messaging me, I got it, I passed. And I'm like, I can't get in. What's going on? So yeah, it took like a couple of hours after we got that email. And then the email they sent said something, it could take up to 48 hours to upload your results. And I'm like, what? No. So yeah, I found out within about 2 hours of that. And yeah, of course.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So I had to tell my husband and my parents first. And then, I took a screenshot of that approval you passed, and sent it to my manager, I did it,
As you should. I would blast that all over social media.
Yeah.
The whole internet needs to know at this point.
I think I still have that screenshot on my phone somewhere. I need the proof.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So now you're a board certified clinical specialist in oncologic physical therapy.
Yep.
What has that meant for you and your practice? It literally is a year-long journey.
Yeah.
From application open date, actually a year plus technically, to submitting your application, writing your case report, submitting your case report, getting it approved, studying, sitting for the exam, waiting for those results. What has that meant for you and your career as an onco PT?
Personally, I don't feel any different. I think it is validation of everything I've experienced personally and professionally. I don't lord it over people. I am the same easygoing, for the most part, person. Don't take my tape measure. Yeah. I've got my special
That's
tape
where
measure.
we draw the line.
Yeah. Don't take my stool. Got my stool. But yeah, otherwise, I feel like I get a little more respect from my peers when we have new grads hired on. I'm like, hey, come look at my wall of my certificates. And I always take on the students we have in the clinic just to like have the lymphedema review and have them shadow with me. And I think that kind of legitimizes like, yeah, this is where she's coming from and this is why she's doing it. So I think that backs up my clinical knowledge by saying that I have this title now.
Right. What is something that you would go back and tell your younger self, Theresa, before starting case report writing process? Like, what is one thing that you wish you had maybe known when you were about to start the application and writing process?
I think it would have been nice to realize a little bit better that, yeah, this is going to be a long haul. I do think I handled it well, but it was a lot. It was a lot. And I don't think I expected quite so much of that. I've always been a decent test taker. Like, did I really need to study that hard? Yes. Because there's so many little things to look at.
There's so much.
Some of those questions really threw me, but I think just, yes, you are a good therapist. Yes, you can do this kind of work. Probably would have started a little sooner even, that's probably the only thing I would have changed. I don't know that if I was in the right headspace to do it earlier year-wise, if this had even been available earlier than 2019, I don't know if I would have been ready in that headspace yet.
Right.
Yeah. So it's, I think maybe do it a year or two earlier. I don't know. That's about all I can say is, but just realize that it is going to be a big part of your life for that year. And hopefully your family understands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of people that I've talked to who are considering sitting for the Oncology Specialty Certification, they're looking at the application, they're looking at that case report requirement. And I hear this all the time from many therapists who are like, I've been out of school for a while. Or, I'm not that far away from retirement. Like, I don't even know if this is really worth my time. And I'm very pro specialization because I know like the knowledge that I have gained from this process has really transformed my practice. And so for the therapist who's been practicing for a while and knows that this is something they're interested in, but they're kind of on the fence of like, is this a good idea? Is this for me? Can I even do it this far out from PT school? What would you tell to them?
Well, yeah, I have my master's in physical therapy because, as I said earlier, that doctorate wasn't a thing. Like, they were coming out with the transitional doctorate when we were just about to go off on our final clinical rotations, and it was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah, right.
So I think the fact that I didn't go for the transitional doctorate, but I could still do something like this. It makes my education still worthy. I've worked with people that had bachelor's degrees and were from the military and had just a wealth of experience, and they could have done this. I think it's just you've already had, that you don't have to be at the upper echelons and teaching or in research, that it's still your experience is still valid.
Yes. And again, just to re-highlight what Theresa has said multiple times, and we talk about this on the podcast too, you don't have to be an academic to do this process. You don't have to be a researcher to do this process. In fact, that's not what the specialty certification is designed for. It's designed for clinicians who are in the field, who are practicing. And if this is something you're interested in and it excites you even a little bit, I really want you to consider this process, because I think as a young clinician going through this process, it was really wonderful to be like, I do really know this stuff. And I know now, especially like we were talking about, with my case report, I found so many things that I was like, why did I not do this?
Right.
Or why did I do that with my patient? And it really made me think much more intentionally on looking at the whole picture. We've heard Theresa talk about how, her case patients' fatigue and how that was playing in to axillary web syndrome. At face value, we don't think about those things like related in that capacity. But because Theresa sat and reflected on that as she's writing, what a better, more holistic experience for all of her patients now, because Theresa is taking this big picture view at this. Are there any other kind of like insights or transformations you feel like that your clinical practice went through as a part of case report writing?
I think it makes me more confident in what I'm doing as well. That I've got that knowledge base again. I've said that already, but sometimes we just get in a rut, and I'm just doing this because this is what I've always done. So I'm not going to tell you that I sit and reflect on every single patient after every single session, other than writing my note. But I think it does make you stop and think, like, yeah, next time they come in, I really need to look at that instead. We need to change focus. And maybe I'm doing that quicker than I would have before because of those reflections.
Totally. For someone who is on the fence about case report writing workshop, they're going to do the application, they're going to do the case report, but they're not sure if the workshop is really beneficial for them. It's going to work for them. What would you tell that listener, Theresa?
You are crazy if you think you can do this without Elise's help. No, I would write Elise questions like all the time, like, what do I do here? What do I do there? And you had the patience to deal with someone from the 1900s. It's just, I felt like I was asking the dumbest questions all the time. And yeah, so you were very quick to respond to any questions I had, which to me was completely amazing because I'm sure you're busy. But I was able to take your feedback very quickly to let's go write that section. So it's dumb to not use the workshop, unless you just have done a ton of case reports prior to this. Just all the little insights you had of like how to use the care statement. I hadn't heard of the care statement before. Just all the little advice you gave along the way, I wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. So thanks.
For the record, Theresa did not ask dumb questions. And that's what I really actually like about the workshop, is because you are actively writing your case report as you're going through those modules. And I'm lurking in the community to answer the questions that people are posing, because I remember how challenging it was to write the case report and be like, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. And I was really fortunate so I submitted mine, and I talked about this before, I needed corrections on mine. Like the abbreviations we talked about earlier, Theresa, I got dinged on those dang abbreviations so much. And I also write with ampersands for the listener. That's the little and sign on your keyboard that you're probably like, what the heck is an ampersand? I write with ampersands all the time, and I had to go back through and it was just silly things like that I wish I had someone who went before me who was like, hey, don't make that mistake, because I did, and I had to change that. And so I think that's what I like about case report writing workshop, because I can be like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
Fix it now before you make that mistake. And again, Theresa submitted her case report and required 0 corrections, which is the best possible outcome that we could ever hope for. And now she's a board certified clinical specialist. Like, again, come on now, Theresa. Oh my God. For the listener who is like, I'm interested, Theresa, you've sold me. what is one last piece of like wisdom or encouragement that you would give to somebody who is starting the application and case report writing process now?
I guess, kind of like what I had done, like make the plan.
Make a plan.
Just have an idea, like this is the day of the week I'm going to work on it, or I want to try to get through 2 modules this week, or whatever it is for you, however you do best. You should know yourself better than I do, but I don't think I would have been able to complete it if I had waited until like August. The fact that I sat down with it in May, and really just started diving in, and maybe I only did 1 module here and there, but I got it done.
Bingo.
And I didn't feel rushed that way.
Nice.
So unless you are one that just really works well under pressure, I would say make a plan.
I think that's sage advice, Theresa. So thank you very, very much for sharing that. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hear that you have a really fabulous Instagram where if people are looking for a little break, they're writing on their case report, they're like, I just need a little brain break. I need to see a cute dog.
Yep.
Or several. I hear that your Instagram is the place to be, Theresa.
Well, I think it is. I don't know. I try not to take it too seriously, but I have 2 corgis, Joey and Toby, and my basset hound Lily. Joey is my life coach. So every month I put up a post of his life advice, which is typically let's sleep in this position today, or let's go for a walk, and where he wants to go for a walk. Toby is my little security guy. He runs the fence perimeter and tells everybody off. And Lily, you will see her grooming photos, including her toenail polish from our groomer that she goes monthly to. So you just imagine a basset hound with pink toenails. So yeah.
This sounds like the best basset hound that I've never met before, and I need to see this immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a blast. She's talkative too. So yeah, she talks back.
Are all basset hounds talkative, or just Lily?
Lily talks back, and she tells you when she's hungry and that kind of thing. So,
I respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that.
She knows herself well. Yeah.
Good for her though. Good for her knowing what she wants. Yeah. Right. She knows herself, like we were talking about, Theresa. You know yourself to make those decisions. Where can people follow you and connect with you on Instagram, Theresa?
On Instagram, it's TBDub77.
Nice.
My nickname at work is T-Dub.
That's a cool day. That's a cool
because
nickname.
As I started getting certifications, we joked that it wasn't going to fit on a business card with my full name of Theresa Walchner.
True.
And yeah, I didn't change my name when I got married or hyphenate or anything, because that would have made it even worse.
Even longer.
So yeah, that's the T-Dub kind of stuck, and so it's TB-Dub for my initials in there.
Incredible. And we'll of course make sure that is linked in the show notes. Theresa, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and talking about this. It's so nice to kind of pull back the curtain and see what this process actually looks like from someone who has gone through it, and you're still working, you're still doing all these things that are your life. And so seeing how you made this work with your life and your schedule to ultimately get towards your goal of submitting that case report and application and becoming that board certified clinical specialist is really, really powerful, especially for listeners who are thinking, I think this is the right next step for me. So thank you so much for sharing all of this on the podcast. I will definitely be linking your Instagram in the show notes so we can get to see all of your cutie pies as soon as possible. So thank you so much, Theresa. I really, really appreciate your time and all of the wisdom you shared with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Onco PT podcast. If you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, leave a rating and review, or support us on Patreon.